Welcome back to Pastor Plek's podcast, recording live from Austin, Texas. And you can see the incredible, studio / worship center that we are at. And so glad that all of you could join us. And today is a special podcast that I've got Pastor Joseph Aiken III present with us.
Oh, what's up? I got to introduce you for Catie.
Wow. Yeah, it's a big deal. And then we also have Mrs. Catie Sas, who's also here.
I just add charisma. Okay?
You do add a lot of charisma.
Okay, wow. Coming right out of the bat.
Yeah, so the show's about Joseph. Yeah, so there we go. We got more charisma. Well, it is about you, Pastor Joseph, because we have some exciting news that I think people may know, but maybe do not know. But you are on the path of planting your own church. We've talked about church planting before, but that is getting ever closer for you as we're now looking at a date of January of 24.
Yes, that is the estimated date right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. As you know, our church has been involved with church planting as we are a church plant. And kind of every 5 years, and I know this sounds bizarre, but every 5 years, churches are asked to, churches in our association, the Association of Hill Country Churches, are asked to have a 5-year church planting plan. Now, do churches all plant churches every 5 years? No, but they're supposed to have a 5-year planning plan to do the best they can with what they have and all that. And so when I got here in 2012, I had a church planning plan, and we planted Holland Gregg in 2017, and that was an incredible experience. And so Eastside Community Church is now 12th in Chicon at Medium Mission Possible. Really cool thing. And then after that, it was like, we are going to try and do this again eventually. And I didn't really know how it would all come out. And James Foster, as many of you know, is now off at Hutto Bible Church as their church plant resident and should be planting in September of 2023. And then Joseph Aiken III is now going to be heading to City View Bible to plant in January 2024. So let's talk about how this whole thing came to be. Is that the right word for it?
Sure, we can, how it came to be.
I feel like the etymology of it is back in the day, you had a call to ministry, and I think when we talk about when it became a call to ministry, and I mean ministry, vocational full-time ministry. When did it become church planting? And I think we talked about this maybe back in 2018 or something along back in those days.
Where you and I talked
Yeah, but it may have been before that.
Oh, yes. Well, my call to ministry happened when I was like over 20 years ago, when it was like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
It being vocational where I got paid for it, and that is primarily what I did.
Yeah.
That happened in 2017 when I came here.
Right.
I was like, oh, well, how I grew up, the pastors that I was under, they all worked.
Right.
And so they worked full time, and they did ministry full time.
Right.
So that's what I saw. So I thought
That's just what you do. Right.
And so when I met you, you're like, no, I want you to come on full staff, and this is what you do. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool. One of the things we talked about on our initial walkabout when we first went, and we were over at the old Livermore Center.
Yeah.
Was walking for a few miles, and I told you, my heart was always to be a lead pastor. Like, I didn't grow up in churches where they planted churches.
Right.
It was just like, all right, it's time for you to get your church. You're either gonna, interview for a church position somewhere, or you kind of go out and do your thing. It wasn't this picture of churches planting churches, that we're in this association and partners. I had never experienced that. I never seen it, didn't know what it was, and so it wasn't until I came here where it was like, oh. And Chris was bringing me in into all the meetings, and I mean, luckily it just happened to be an office building, so I was right there. Yeah, come sit in. And so I'm listening, I'm seeing it, so like, oh, this is cool. And so yeah, as far as church planting, that the idea of planting through Wells Branch or through the association, that was probably when I came here.
Yeah. And I think it's unique. When I tell people about kind of how our Association of Hill Country Churches operates, people, they go, you do what? Like, how's that even possible? And it's hard to explain. And so that's kind of been, the Hill Country Bible Church over at Lakeline, you could say is responsible for planting 41 churches. Now, of those, I think 29 are still existing because there's, a bunch of churches merged and some died, and that happens. But we've been able to be a part of Eastside Community Church, and then when Eastside planted Refuge Community Church, I consider us being a part of that. And then, sending you and James out to plant is just an exciting extension of how God can use our church to further church planting, even coming out of a season of COVID and everything else, where everything seems to be contracting. We need the kingdom of God to be expanding.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, even over the past, I would say the past year or so, when it's become, you and I have talked a little bit more about, hey, well, this could be a plan, and this could be a plan with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
And so it's just, the light I see, sometimes I feel like, man, I know it's there, God. I know what you're talking to, but I didn't see a light.
Yeah.
I felt like I didn't see a light. Like, okay, I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to stay here. This is what you want us to do. And so I think this past summer, it happened quickly in a sense of, hey, Joseph, it's time. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We release you kind of thing. God's going to do his thing from there. And so it did happen. Me going to City View was pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been having conversation with Keith over the past, couple years. They've been looking for a church planter for forever. And so he would call me like, all right, what do you think? And I'm like, well, I think Joseph's getting ready. Is it the right time? And he'd go back and forth with me. And I'm like, at some point we're like, all right, let's go. Green light it. Let's do it. And I think it's exciting. It's scary. Because anytime you do church planning, there's a real loss that our own church is going to feel, but to expand the kingdom. And what's going to happen, here's what's going to be weird. You're going to notice, this is what happened last time too. So people won't necessarily go with Joseph to plant, but they won't stay at our church either. It's just the reality of how that happens. So that's sort of a sad casualty of being vigorous for the kingdom, is you sort of have the casualty of the planning process is people go, I just don't feel like my person that I knew, but I don't actually want to go with them, but that was the person that I knew at the church. That happened a lot with when Holland was sent. A lot of people just sort of fell off. And that's just part of it. And so I think we'll probably experience that from our own church experience, but I do believe that God's going to be faithful to bring more people to continue the act of discipleship and evangelism, which is really important for us. So I think sometimes when people hear that, they're like, well, you're just like cutting off your own legs. In a sense, maybe you would see that if you didn't believe that God was greater and that there was a specific calling that God has in Joseph's life that we want to accentuate, we want to promote, and we want to get behind. Because the kingdom of God isn't about a competition so that we can all have jobs. It's about furthering the kingdom of God so that God's kingdom would grow. So.
Yeah, I love that. That was one of the things that drew me to just the association. Where it's like, hey, every man, woman, and child, life changing reality of Jesus Christ here.
Yeah.
And so I love that. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. So Chris, how are you doing? Because it's two people.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's a high honor. Honestly, it's exciting. So it's fun. What Holland, I think, as our first church planner that we sent in 2017. Like, I love meeting with him now. Not that I didn't love meeting with him before. It's just the relationship is different. And it's an exciting thing to go like, hey, what are you dealing with? And we laugh a whole bunch because we have the same issues as a lead pastor. And I'm really looking forward to that experience with you and James, and because it is wonderful. It is exciting to be on the front line. But it is hard. I think there's a little bit of grieving that you have to do to go, I just lost my friends. And it's not that you lost them. It's just different. I used to see Holland every single day, and now I see him once a month, or maybe twice a month. And I feel like, that's hard. I think that's hard for me. I think it's hard for church people. What do you think, Catie? Is that hard, a grieving process to know that it's like sending your kids to college or sending people on to do the next great thing? And it's always more fun to be the one leaving than the one that's left.
Yes, it is more fun to leave than to be left. But it is sad. I'm definitely going to miss y'all, and I'm going to miss James and Catie, and y'all aren't like luckily you're not like moving away.
Right.
But it is kind of a bummer to because church is such a big part of your life. And
yeah.
So you see these people
all the time.
I see you every Monday, pretty much. And so
we'll still have to have you come in for some podcasts.
Yeah. You'll be a guest speaker. Wow. But yeah, it is sad. So.
Yeah, it is. But ultimately, it's like it kind of goes back to a seed cannot grow a tree unless it first dies.
Yes, it's exciting and sad. Catie makes jokes. She's like, "Are you gonna even miss me?" And she's like, "You don't seem like you're gonna miss me." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm just excited for you. Like, I'm so excited. I want everyone to feel the excitement from me than the sadness that, you know."
Yeah, and so what it does mean too is that it's going to require our church to step up in a huge way from a layperson perspective, because you know it's kind of I'll be the only full-time pastor on staff here for a while until we can hire somebody else. And it's like ha ha ha, sucks to be you. Yeah, so it is a little bit challenging because it's not like need goes down; it only goes up, and so therefore. It is a little difficult, and so we are in the process of looking for an associate pastor specifically and a youth pastor specifically. So that's an exciting thing to be looking for. So if you know somebody, let me know. But it also is challenging. You kind of go back into church plant mode of like, you know, just getting out there, sharing the gospel, being very vigorous with your time as opposed to running a staff, which is kind of where you start with, right? So I think it gets to be a really cool experience because everybody goes back to church plant mode of like, hey, we need to reach lost people. And so if you don't do that, what ends up happening is you can focus on keeping people as opposed to reaching people. And that's a great way for the gospel to stop going forward when we circle the wagons, put weapons out, say, you bad people stay away, us good people will be in here. And I think there's a real tendency in our postmodern Christian world to do that because we're so terrified of them, right? And so I do feel like that becomes a powerful. You were a them at one point, Catie, and I love that. And I think it was our last podcast where we talked about this, where you said, you know, you were a person that took on the view of the culture, and I asked you, do you think you would still be a person of like
would I be a liberal if I never became Christian?
Right? Yeah.
like politically, like thinking of their political views.
Right. Like that. You changed.
I would. I probably would be.
Yeah, and so not that we need to get into how to influence the culture. Like, we want to influence the culture by changing hearts, not by telling people to change their behavior. Like, change the way you vote. No, if you have an understanding of what Jesus has done for you, and then the way you get his worldview, it changes the way you vote, it changes the way you believe, it changes the way you speak, it changes the way you see other people. Which is why church planting becomes so important, because a church that's involved in church planting will lead more people to faith in its first 10 years than for the rest of its life as a church combined. And that I hope that's not true for our church. I hope our church continues to reach more and more people, and I think it will. But for the most part, a church's first 10 years of life, they'll see more conversions of people come to faith than the rest of its 100-year, 2,000-year history of that church. Maybe 2,000 years might be a bit of a stretch, but yeah, you know what I mean.
Joseph, I really want you to get a little vulnerable.
Oh, here we go.
Just bear with me. But I want you to share some of the sacrifices that you had to make over the last 5 years to make, to make this happen. And just like as a husband, as a father, like what are some of the hardships that you experienced when leaving one career to jump into another one?
The career of school administration, right?
Yes.
Because weren't you about to become an assistant
VP
principal? So I just would love if you would share your heart on how it felt kind of changing careers and how that affected your family.
I was excited about, when you say changing careers, like I was always doing ministry. And so it was just not doing teaching anymore. And so even while I taught, like that ministry was there. I was doing it. So I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed teaching in that capacity. But coming into the church, it was like I'm not limited to 1 to 4 walls. Like I could leave the classroom. As a teacher, if you ever work at school, it's like, oh, bathroom break, run out, come back, gotta get to the next class. Like I didn't like those kind of things. That was the joy of leaving. But I still miss working with students all the time and things like that. And so the joy of it though, like man, I get to do this all the time. I get to talk about God. Like I don't have to filter or not say things, worry about what if I'm talking to the student, who are they going to tell their parents that I invited them to church and stuff like that. Because I would still do it, but it was always that in the back of my mind, I might get fired for this. I don't have to worry about getting fired for sharing the gospel because that's my job.
Yeah.
So that wasn't necessarily switching to do ministry full time wasn't necessary. Like that didn't take away my joy.
Right.
There was a financial piece of it where it's like hey, you can get this job or you can get this job, and the difference in pay is
Was big.
substantial. And so it's like, God, you got me. And so it was definitely a faith walk in that sense. And my wife, she was all for it. Like, hey, I told one of the elders at City View, I said, hey, when I presented this to my wife and said, this is the difference in pay, she was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. And the elder was like, oh, she told you to do the principal? I said, no, she told me to do ministry. But she's always supported the ministry, and she knew from the very beginning that that's what we were supposed to do. And so our marriage, as far as like suffering, I mean, it's not necessarily suffering, but it's been hard because it's a different culture.
Yeah.
Like the churches, as far as structure, is the same. Hey, you sing some songs, do an album, preach, and sing some songs. That there's different pieces and elements in that.
I love that.
That are a little bit different, but for the most part, there's that
basic.
It's basic. That's the skeleton of any church. Most churches that you'll go to, that's what it's going to look like on a Sunday morning. And so that was the same. It's just the people are different. You're a minority now, and you don't necessarily feel like you fit in, or that your voice matters, and that you don't have a seat at the table yet, and you gotta prove who you are. That hey, that people may think this about you, and I didn't know. So in my mind, that was always playing of, hey, this person is looking at me because of the clothes I wear, because of the shoes I wear, and they are prejudging me based on what they think about the world. And so I felt like at times in the beginning I had to prove who I was, or show them, hey, I love Jesus. Yes, I do. I love Jesus. How about you? Like to play this game with them, to show them like I love Jesus. And so if you can get past this prejudice of, oh, Joseph likes nice shoes, or the clothes is he's wearing joggers. Oh, his jeans are a little tight. Oh, they got holes in them. And so that part of it, there was always that.
Your style was definitely different from all the other pastors.
But it's like, man, do I be me or do I try to fit in? And so trying to make sure I didn't necessarily assimilate to the culture, or in a sense of losing who I was. And then as far as parenting my son, my son has grown up. The biggest years of him learning has been here at Wells Branch. And so 2-3 years ago, there was a time when he asked me, he said, Dad, how come no one else looks like me in the classroom? And those, as a father,
that's painful.
I mean, it hurts.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, what are you doing? Like, my son even notices, like, he's a minority. And on Sunday, for me, that was never a thing. Like, and God said, and I told God, I said, look, 2 years, I'm out. You look like this. And a year or so ago, when it came back around, God brought it back to my remembrance, and he says, you out? I said, can I go? He said, no. And I was like, all right, we still got to do this. And so just it's a faith walk where it's like I'm trusting God with my family. I'm trusting you to lead, trusting that we're growing from this. And he has grown us. He's matured us. And I do believe that he's taking us to the next part of this journey as far as ministry. So, I mean, there's sacrifices of time, you think, but that's ministry. You sacrifice time. Sometimes I have to go do ministry. My kids know that. My wife. There's been 90-hour weeks when I was doing youth ministry during the summer. It's like, ooh, I can't even really go home. I gotta stay here the whole time. My wife, we just had a kid,
and y'all were like in the middle of trying to find a house for a long time,
and
like,
yeah. And so it's one of those where it's like, man, I can look back and say, God, this could have been like this if I did this and I made this money and I did that. God, why do I have to struggle financially? God, why does it have to look like this for me on my journey? Why does it have to be this hard? It's not this hard.
Right.
No one gave me this amount of money and to where I could just go do this and pay off a car or buy a house. So I experienced things that weren't common culturally in where I grew up, where it's like, oh yeah, someone just blessed me with a car. Oh yeah, someone just paid rent. Oh yeah, like I started experiencing things like that. Not no one blessed me with a car, but I just started seeing it around me. Where it's like, man, this is different. It's definitely different. And so God just, I mean, he taught us a lot on this journey, and it's not over. Like Chris said, I know that it doesn't get easier.
Yeah.
Everything gets harder.
Yeah, this is the honeymoon part, or like like yay, it's all exciting, and then when that launch day comes, it's grind, and it gets scary because you're just like, oh, is it gonna die? And then it's fine, and you just gotta trust the Lord that He's got the whole world in His hands.
So I'm looking forward to it, and I know that it's not gonna be easy. I'm blessed compared to a lot of people in the association. This is home for me.
Yeah. A lot of people moved. I moved down here. Almost, Keith Ferguson from City View, he moved down here. Danny Box was here. Bobby Pruitt was here. And even James Foster now, because he spent 10 years here. Several of them were here. The ones that make it usually are pastors that were from here, because you have all the relational networks built in. And that's what makes a successful church planter, is you're reaching the people. It's like the demoniac going back to his friends and family and telling them what Jesus had done for him. And so when you get that aspect, it's like, and I think a lot of people, from what the stories you told, knew that you were the genuine article back then. And so it's not that hard for them to see that you haven't changed, and you were a follower of Christ on the east side, and now you're a follower of Christ in Austin, and it's just, we're keeping it moving. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. I think that's a rare thing, and that's what I feel like we need more of in Austin, because people are church planting outside of Austin all the time, and I think Austin needs more churches. If everybody wanted to go to church at the same time, they couldn't. There wouldn't be enough room. If you took all the services, there'd still be another million extra people that aren't going to church anymore. And so what we need is more churches, and the best church planners are people that are indigenous, because they grew up here and they know the system, they know where things are, they know how people operate, they have relationships with business owners and schools and all the things that you need to pull off a church plant, because everything's based on relationship, because this is any entrepreneurial dream, which is what church planting is, and like from a business standpoint, it's an entrepreneurship where you're asking people to invest in the kingdom of God at their local high school, at their, at the bar that we're in now. That's a really crazy thing to ask. And so asking people to come join you on the journey is a really challenging thing. And so that's why I love the fact that you are an Austinite. You get that. And so as you're looking to plant local, it gets people excited to follow that you've known maybe for 20 years, and they're ready to come with you.
Mm-hmm. At all, and I'm excited that I get to go do it. One of the things that Keith, when you're filling out the application or the interview, the stuff, I'm signing it, and one of them says, "Hey, the goal isn't to just steal people from other churches. Like, that's in the it's to reach the lost. So I'm agreeing that, hey, I'm not trying to get these 5 good people from here, 5 good people from here. And so I'm excited about that. This is home for me, so I got a lot of family here, and like you said, just the natural connections from principals, like people that were my coaches are now principals of some of the schools around the area I would like to plan and stuff like that. So I've just been blessed to where I've been a teacher for 10 years, so a lot of the young adults that I see now, I taught them 10 years ago, and stuff like that. So it's just a blessing that a lot of it's coming to fruition. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to not necessarily, I'm not saying to be an equal, but to be able to come to Chris and say, hey, look, this is what I'm dealing with. Mm-hmm. Like, how did you handle this? Mm-hmm. Or go to some of the other pastors, because it's different. I know what Chris, the things that Chris faced are different from what I face as a connections pastor. Mm-hmm. And so I get excited knowing that I'll have those, but I'm surrounded around not just Chris, but an association of people. Yep. Like, hey, we want to see you. If you're successful, we're successful.
The rising tide lifts all ships.
We all win. You win, we win. Yep. We got the same head coach, same playbook, all that good stuff. And so I get excited just that, all right, no more huddles. It's time to run a play.
Yeah, no, that's what's good.
I'm nervous, but I'm anxious.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It's all the things.
I'm anticipating, so I don't, it's like, man, where do I start? What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah, the hardest thing I think for people is when you think of starting a church, you think, where am I going to get people from? And the hardest thing is it is evangelism. It's reaching neighbors, going to places where you've worked. That's what the advantage of being local is. You can go to the high schools that you've worked at before, and you have connections with people who trust you, and you're like, hey, I'm doing this thing for church. Would you come and join me? And they're like, I don't even believe in Jesus yet. Doesn't matter. You need to come and check this thing out. Let me share Jesus with you. And that's where the salvations happen, because you're not building. This isn't a church split. This is a church plant. And so the church plant goes, I'm going to go be planted in this area of the city. I'm going to go reach the people in my vicinity and ask them to come join me in the journey of Jesus. And the cool part about that is when you get a lot of people that are church, they bring their background and baggage from the church they had in their past. And they're like, well, we don't have, where's the men's ministry? Where's the women's ministry? Where's the blah, 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 blah. And if you have no background, you're not angry about the fact that they don't do it like they used to do it back in the day. Which is why, Catie, you were so great when you came here, because you didn't have a baggage of like, well, at my last church, we did X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I had no expectations.
And that's what made it simple to lead you, because you weren't coming with an agenda. And I think that's what made it
I
really...
didn't know what things were supposed to look like.
Right, and that's what made it... Gosh, that's what I love. Like, you want to start with a church full of Caties. And because... No, the thing that was really cool about you back in the day, in our... Because you came to...
Not anymore.
No, it's still cool. But back then, in 2014, you were going to the bar, you were going to the club, and you still hadn't changed your friends yet, your habits, and you were just saying, hey, you should come to church. Hey, you should come to church. Right. Hey, you should come to church. And then we... Remember?
And they never came.
No, they did come.
What?
The girl's name started with a B.
No.
Yeah. She was your friend.
Brianna.
Brianna.
No, she wasn't my friend before. She was my friend because of the sword class. What is it called again?
Right.
Fencing class.
I paid.
Yes.
That's
so
right. We paid for you to take a fencing class to meet people. That was so awesome.
It's honestly kind of mortifying for me, because when they said, Chris is like, okay, you're going to be our ACC missionary, pick a class to take.
That's
and
right.
The only class that I could find that based on my work schedule that I could go to was this fencing class. And I had never heard of...
This was the best. You thought it was about building fences.
I don't know why I started to tell this story. I totally regret it now. But I didn't know that fencing was sword fighting. And so I get to this class, because I'm thinking, okay, building fences, like, I'm from the country, like, I can handle this, like, I'm just gonna, like, you know, like, that's kind of interesting that there's the fence building class at college. And I get there, and I feel like a fish out of water, like the farthest from water possible. Like, I was like, these aren't even people that I know how to talk to. Like, this is like a social circle that I just have I'm like, how do I talk to these people? They're weird. Like, I don't know what to do. So, yeah.
Would you go to a class again?
Oh, man, now I have a toddler. I don't know.
You could be like, parenting class or something.
Maybe. I think it can't be college. I'm freaking 30 tomorrow.
Nobody can tell.
You just gave your compliment.
I know, but at some point, I should look like I'm older than 17.
Well, yeah, at some point, not yet.
But yeah, I turned 30 tomorrow. Did y'all know that?
Whoa!
But
Congratulations.
Yeah, so
I just remember when you couldn't get into Plek casino night when we were trying to reach, and you were like on the outside.
I was so pissed. I had to sit on the freaking swings on the playground because I didn't have a ride home. And like wait for my friends that were old enough to get in. And so I just sat.
That was funny.
On the playground. And waited for them.
That's one of the best stories of all time.
Yeah, because it wasn't you. But yeah, anyway.
Well, I love that. And so I'm excited for Joseph. I can't wait for God bless you in that way. And we're watching and we're excited. We're going to be celebrating Joseph at our church along with James at the Concert of Praise for a big send-off on July 31st. So hopefully after you listen to this podcast, you're like, oh, I'll be there for that experience. And we'll be sending him off and giving him big hugs. But he'll come back and preach for us, don't worry. So you can probably see him the next month. But it won't be every week. And that'll be like a sad day.
I know. That'd be a bummer.
Yeah.
Can I just encourage y'all really quick before you wrap it up?
Yeah, please.
Because I just know pastors, y'all have a hard job.
Uh-huh.
I don't think a lot of people understand like the complexities that y'all face. And so, you're not only pastors, your husbands, your fathers, your sons, So, like, I just wanted to say I'm proud to know y'all, and I'm proud that I get to go to church with y'all, you for what, like another, not even a month. So, but yeah, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for this next journey, and I know you're going to lead a really awesome church.
You are.
So.
And it's going to be, is it one church? What are you going to call it?
Oh. Is there a name?
Do you have a name?
I do have a name.
Is it too early to have you like, you don't have to keep this name. This is just
we rate it.
Yes.
Okay, ready?
Oh, this would be good. Identity Church. Ooh.
That's cool. You would come up with like an edgier, like cooler name.
Identity. What's your? Is that you just go? What's your identity, or like what's your tagline? Have you thought of a tagline yet?
I think I had some stuff written down. We've been praying through, and I got my creative person working on all my.
Oh yeah, Sierra's gonna make the best graphic.
Your first staff member.
Just everything.
Identity.
So no, I'm excited.
And maybe you get an ID when you get there, kind of like as your.
So there are. So we came up with the name, and then we looked it up. There are identity churches outside of Texas. So
You be the Identity Texas.
yeah, but no one owns identitychurch.com because it's a premium.
It's like $1,500 or something.
It's like $4,000.
Oh god.
Oh.
So start your donations now.
I will. But no one owns it yet, so it'll be out. There's a couple other churches.
Well, because you go around it like the Identity Church or something.
Well, yeah, but
you
yeah.
Be simple.
Simple. You don't want to.
So good. That's open, but I'll probably pray for 6 months, 7 months.
Dang.
Yeah.
No one's gonna buy it because these churches are out there. There's one in Florida. Actually, it's pretty.
Moving and shaking church.
Yeah, but it's not there yet, so they haven't got it yet. So I gotta get to my donations. So buy it.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it.
But yeah, Identity Church is what it is.
And what do you think? Is that a good name?
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too.
It sounds cool.
I think you go along with it. Like, for our discipleship programs, identity and life patterns, and you can kind of like, what are the life patterns that match your identity of being a church? Whatever.
That's why I keep Chris.
That's
Right
it,
there.
man. Boom, boom. Love
The
it.
idea guy.
Oh,
1,000 of ideas. Just maybe one of them will stick.
I say Chris is that guy. He's like, give me 1,000, throw me some wall. Oop, that's the one. Right
That's the one.
But don't ever tell Chris you have an idea because then he'll just say, okay, then go do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Most leaders are when you have
Yeah, I love your ideas.
If you do them, yeah. Yeah.
Well, because usually people come and say, you know what you need to do? And then I'll be like,
And then you turn it around.
and I go, no, here's what you can do for the
Here's how you could serve the church.
Yeah, because a lot of times people come at pastors with all their ideas of all the things a pastor should be doing, and you go, no, actually, that's where the Lord's calling you. That is so great. You just encourage them.
Yeah.
Well, hey, everyone, I am so grateful. If you guys want to join the conversation, it's 737-231-0605, or go to pastorplek.com and send in some well wishes for Pastor Joseph. He'll still be around for a couple more weeks, and we would be on the podcast. Probably love to answer anything you have for him. Just so grateful for the ministry here, and make sure you share and subscribe and do all the things that you do on podcasts everywhere. So from our house to yours, have an awesome week of worship.